Hello, this is Angela with Parkrose Hausfrau. I am upstairs in the craft room of my home here in Portland, Oregon. I had meant to talk about something else entirely today that y'all have requested many times, which is the topic of unschooling. I have 4 kids ages 10 to 19, and we are unschoolers. And I know y'all have asked me to share some of my thoughts and philosophy, but I want to be really authentic and I want to be really present in the videos that I'm making. And there's another subject that will tie into unschooling, so it's super relevant. But there's another subject that's been kind of weighing on me or in the forefront of my mind. And so I'd like to talk about that a little bit today instead. So I hope you'll hang tight with me. It applies not only to those of us that are homemakers, but just anybody who's a human being. So for those of us that are full-time homemakers, it's really important to have kind of our purpose at the forefront. When we reflect on our actions and our choices, are they in alignment with our values as a homemaker? Are they in alignment with the purpose that we see for our vocation? And I think it's really important not only to find the work that we do meaningful and fulfilling, but it's also important because we have a meaningful and fulfilling role, not only for us as individuals, but for the community. We offer something for our community. Homemaking is a valuable and cherished profession that benefits everybody that comes in contact with a homemaker. So let's talk today a little bit about our driving purpose as homemakers. Now, I made a post a while ago on social media because this is something that has been just really weighing on me and I've been thinking about a lot. And I know I have been guilty of it as well. But we live in a culture where on social media spaces and in public spaces, performative meanness is kind of elevated. Everybody kind of gets off on smacking somebody down. And this is from both ends of kind of the political and ideological spectrum, where you get kind of, ally points for taking somebody who doesn't have as enlightened a perspective as you do and shaming them in public instead of bringing them alongside and lifting them up. It is, I want to get the ally points by performing in public to look like I am more woke than somebody else, and that people will pat me on the back if I take somebody who has a problematic viewpoint or even just missteps in public, and I kind of smack them down. If a bunch of us dogpile on that person, oh yeah, it's like a feeding frenzy, right? It's like blood in the water. And so it becomes more and more and more common. And I'm just like really fed up. The end of the year, I quit about 20 Facebook groups for homesteading, homemaking. In fact, I quit the biggest homemaking group on Facebook because of just mean crap that people were saying to each other. Folks who say things with good intentions. And I've talked about this a lot on both of my YouTube channels, how assuming positive intent is so important. So I left a bunch of these groups because I'm like, I'm not really connecting with any other homesteaders. The homemaking information that I am gleaning is just overshadowed in these Facebook groups by the meanness that I'm seeing. And for me, when I think about what my purpose is as a homemaker, I really think that caregiving is right up at the forefront. So homemakers don't have to be parents. Many of us are parents. Many of us care for elderly relatives. Many of us are caring for folks in our community. Caregiving is one of the essential skills of a homemaker and one of the essential purposes. I made a video on my other channel that will be coming out later this weekend about the gift economy. And it's the same thing, like the pleasure in giving to others, the pleasure we receive in serving others and caring for others provides a great deal of personal fulfillment. And gifting our skills and our energy to other people, completely decoupled from any monetary exchange, we as homemakers are supporting a more sustainable way of living. I feel that when we as homemakers set aside our caregiving mindset in our exchange with other people, we are not only damaging the vocation of homemaking in general, but we're doing a disservice to our community. The momentary thrill of being able to take down someone on social media who is just a complete jerk, or somebody on social media who just worded something really like tone deaf or just worded something really unfortunately, the little thrill from being able to just smack them down, I'm telling y'all, it's not worth it. I have absolutely been guilty of this in the past. There's that little transgressive thrill with being able to take down somebody who is being a jerk on social media, or there is that thrill of looking in public like you are the righteous one. So when I look at our skills as homemakers for caregiving for our home, caregiving for our household, caregiving for our children, for our elders in our community, volunteering in our community, having skills and a mindset of engaging in a way that is life-giving instead of extractive, we have an opportunity here to have an influence in the way that our culture operates. And to say, in this homemaking group, when somebody missteps and misspeaks, I'm not going to dogpile on them. So I just encourage us when we're thinking about what our goals are as homemakers. When I think about caregiving, I think about bestowing love. I think about the tremendous sense of fulfillment I get from helping be a positive influence in somebody else's life, whether it be my family members or out in the community. And I would just really encourage us to think about orienting ourselves that way. Think about whether we can be someone who contributes to turning around the toxic individuality and performative meanness in our culture, and instead being a voice for kindness and empathy. There is a meme that's been going around that's like, okay, what's the secret? What's the secret to life? And it's like, just empathy, just like pour out the empathy. And I think that's so true. I am not somebody who is naturally that empathetic of a person, and it is a learned skill I've had to work on. And I thank my children for teaching me that skill. They have been the best teachers I've had. But if you are somebody who's not finding yourself to be naturally a very empathetic person, maybe you're team INTJ like me, maybe you're team robot like I used to be, it is a learned skill and you can cultivate it. And the more you work at it, being intentional at it, the easier it becomes and the more you feel it naturally. I will say maybe I was always really empathetic, but I just like shut off those valves because of, childhood trauma or whatever. So it's more about learning to open the release valve and like be able to let that waterfall out again, right? And I think that we'll find if we undertake our homemaking and our engagement in public spaces in a way that is in alignment with our values, the same way we would treat the small children in our home or the elders in our community, how about we treat strangers on social media that way? So for me, it's meant completely disengaging from toxic spaces. It's meant choosing my words more carefully when I reply to somebody, choosing to pause and say, am I misreading their words? Could I assume positive intent in what they're saying? Could I reframe it? Am I reading that right? Or am I reading that with an attitude and a posture of combativeness? Rethinking, pausing. If I'm not sure I'm going to engage in a way that's in alignment with my values, I walk away. One thing we've talked about in our family a lot is, I've done DBT, and one of my kids has done DBT, which is a kind of therapy where they talk about not engaging when your emotions are high. When you are in a highly emotional state, you don't engage because you are likely to say something that you regret. And I think that's really true for those of us that are wanting to be true to our caregiving values, wanting to be true to our values of gifting, love, and compassion as a career. And those of us that are professional homemakers, we should be professionals at behaving that way. And so I would just encourage you, if it's hard for you to restrain yourself from the really significant, heavy, strong pull of the cultural influence to behave in a way that is culturally dominant but not in keeping with your values, I would encourage you to just step away. So again, for me, that meant quitting a whole bunch of Facebook groups that I felt like made me sad and also made me more trigger happy with the meanness, right? Like my initial reaction was not one of empathy and not one of grace and compassion. My initial reaction was starting to be colored by those that were around me. So sometimes we need to just disengage, but sometimes it's about saying, hey, actually, could we all remember to engage with kindness here? Could we remember to choose empathy? The homemaking group that I left, it was just so disheartening to me to see so many folks that I'm not really sure why they're homemakers, if they can behave that way just say the meanest cutting things to other homemakers instead of saying, gosh, I think you're probably coming from a different place than me, and could you just clarify your words a little bit? Or just choosing not to engage at all. So I know this was a little bit of a ramble, but I would hope that those of us that are homemakers, we can think about caregiving in a way that replenishes us and replenishes our community. So for me, when I am being kind to somebody else, when I'm choosing empathy, when I'm choosing to assume positive intent, when I'm choosing to pour out empathy and more empathy, when I'm choosing to set boundaries for myself that help limit my negative engagement, my detrimental engagement, I'm not only caring for my community, but I'm caring for myself. And I think we'll find the more we're true to our values as homemakers, the more that we will see our communities prosper, but also in our own hearts, we're going to prosper, right? In our own lives, we're going to feel like we are living our homemaking with integrity, right? We are living our lives with integrity. So again, we're going to misstep. We're going to screw up sometimes. We're going to lose our temper sometimes. But I would just encourage us to be a force for good, just like we can be a force for showing folks that there's ways to live outside of consumer culture. There's ways to live that are more in alignment with sustainability and with our goals in terms of how we want to engage with the planet. We can also show that there are more sustainable, more just, more equitable, more compassionate ways to live in our engagement with other human beings, not just our household, but those beyond our household in our greater community. We can be a model and an example, and we'll find that it benefits us as much as it does others, that we can set the tone, and we'll find that that is a really nourishing thing for everybody. So thanks for letting me ramble a little bit. I know that that was not on par with my subject plans for today, but I'll get back around to it. I promise y'all, unschooling is coming up. So I hope that you'll engage with me in the comments below about how we as homemakers have an opportunity here to speak into a culture that is more polarized, that is more mean, that is more rewarding of behavior that divides us instead of unites us. That we as homemakers here can see our unique opportunity to dive in and to take the same kinds of goodness that we pour into our homes and pour them into our communities, and therefore be a positive influence everywhere that we go. If you enjoyed this video, you can check out my Patreon and my PayPal down in the description. I will be back next Friday, and tomorrow check out my video on my main channel, Parkos Permaculture, where I'm going to be talking about the gift economy. Thanks.